The galactic patrol logs were flawless, every route mapped, every risk calculated. Yet on the charts, one sector always ended in a neat, silent void labeled only Terran space. The cadets joked about it. The admirals avoided it. And the few ships that crossed that border never reported back. The galaxy was neat. Or at least, the Council liked to believe so. Every sector carved, every trade lane marked, every patrol route scheduled with the precision of a clock. Order, in all its sterile perfection, stretched across millions of stars. Except for one blotch. A curious void sat on the galactic map. No patrol route crossed it. No outpost had been planted. Even the most aggressive empires skirted its edge as though touching the border would leave a stain. It was labeled Terran space, though no one on the Council dared to say the name aloud for long. Maps were supposed to explain the universe. This section asked questions. Tonight, questions pressed harder than ever. The chamber of the Galactic Council swarmed with nervous energy. Holographic stars glittered overhead, casting cold light across rows of alien dignitaries. Some whispered, others shifted uneasily in their pods. On the central display, a red line blinked. It represented the last known trajectory of a patrol fleet that had, like the others before it, vanished after daring to enter Terran territory. 17 ships, croaked the representative of the Kelvar, his mandibles clicking with indignation. 17 ships, gone without a trace. Do you expect us to accept this superstition forever? The hall buzzed. Some nodded, others hissed in disagreement. For cycles they had avoided the subject. Yet fleets kept vanishing, and the void on the map grew heavier, like a wound ignored too long. A chair at the far end creaked. It was rare to hear such a sound here. The occupant was human, and unlike the others, he didn't recline in a pod or hover in a shell. He simply sat in a chair, plain wood, no ornamentation, as though this ancient, uncomfortable thing suited him better than any gilded throne. His dark uniform bore no rank insignia, only a small silver pin that caught the light when he shifted. His name, at least the one he gave, was Commander Elias Ward. The human smiled, the sort of smile that unsettled those who didn't quite understand it. Friendly on the surface, yet too measured, too precise, as though weighed for effect. I believe, Ward said softly, his voice carrying with unnatural ease, that you're all asking the wrong question. The Kelvar snapped his mandibles in irritation. And what, human, would the right question be? How many more fleets must we lose before your kind offers an explanation? Ward leaned forward, resting his hands lightly on the table. Not how many more fleets vanish, but why did you keep sending them in the first place? Laughter rippled from some delegates, though it was nervous, not amused. The bluntness unsettled them. The Council's conversations were usually buried in layers of protocol and ritual. Ward cut through it like a blade through silk. A reptilian envoy of the Kroll hissed. Because no sector may remain lawless. A space unpatrolled is an invitation for piracy. Surely even you Terrans understand that. Ward tilted his head, as though pondering the words. Oh, piracy. Of course. His tone was thoughtful, polite, yet somehow mocking without breaking courtesy. But forgive me, I was under the impression piracy requires survivors to tell tales. And so far, none of your fleets have returned to complain. A silence settled. Some aliens shifted in discomfort, others studied him with sharp eyes. The human had said nothing overtly threatening. Yet the implication was a blade under the table, sharp enough to draw blood. The Council speaker, a translucent being whose form shimmered like liquid glass, broke the tension. Commander Ward, surely you, above all, know what lies within your borders. Why do you persist in keeping us uninformed? Ward gave the faintest shrug. Because you insist on assuming that what lies within is your business. The chamber erupted again. Protests, accusations, murmurs of conspiracy. Ward sat back, folding his hands calmly, watching the uproar as though it were theater. At last, the noise died. And that was when he spoke again, casually, almost conversationally. Let me tell you a story, Ward said. Humans like stories. Keeps the nerves calm. Several delegates frowned, unsure whether to indulge him. But curiosity had already hooked them. Against reason, they leaned in. There was once, Ward continued, a fishing village on Earth. Small, unremarkable, perched by the sea. They built a harbor, sent out boats, hauled in their catch. Nothing unusual. Then one day, strangers sailed too close, thinking to raid the place. They expected easy prey. Fishermen aren't soldiers, after all. Ward's eyes glinted in the cold light. Funny thing about fishermen. They spend their lives studying the sea. They know its moods, its dangers, its hidden depths. The raiders thought they would take the village. Instead, they vanished. And in time, the maps simply stopped marking that coast. Sailors knew better than to land there. He let the silence stretch, the story hanging like smoke. Then he smiled again, thin and unreadable. I suspect your fleets have discovered something similar. The chamber chilled. No one spoke at first. Even those who disdained human theatrics couldn't shake the unease crawling under their skin. Finally, the Kelvar snapped. You dare imply your people are behind these vanishings? Ward blinked, polite as ever. Imply? Oh, heavens no. I would never imply. I'm simply sharing a story. You draw whatever conclusions you wish. The Kelvar hissed furiously, but his voice faltered. There was something in the human's calm that gnawed at the back of every mind in the chamber. The speaker shifted uneasily. Then, Commander Ward, what do you recommend we do? Ignore the void forever. Ward stood, smoothing his uniform, his voice steady. I recommend you remember something very simple. Some places are quiet because they are empty. Others are quiet because something there wants them to remain that way. The difference is important. He inclined his head slightly, as though giving a final courtesy. And if you value your fleets, your maps, and perhaps your civilization, you will let Terran space remain wonderfully blank. With that, he turned and walked out, footsteps echoing sharp and deliberate against the polished floor. The chamber stayed silent long after he left. Aliens shifted uneasily in their seats, each replaying his words in their own mind. For the first time in many cycles, the Council found itself afraid not of what it knew, but of what it did not. The Kelvar were not known for patience. They prided themselves on precision, obedience, and above all, dominance of the void. When their ships disappeared, they did not mourn, they demanded answers. 2 cycles after Commander Ward's unnerving Council appearance, the Kelvar High Command launched a new fleet toward Terran space. Not a timid probe or a handful of scouts. An armada of 31 ships, bristling with weapons, equipped with the most advanced sensors they owned. Enough firepower to reduce a minor empire to ashes. They called it Operation Clean Sweep. The name sounded bold in official declarations, but to the rest of the galaxy, it reeked of desperation. On the observation deck of the Kelvar flagship Iron Fang, Admiral Trixon clicked his mandibles as he reviewed the tactical display. Red lines cut across the starfield, charting their entry route. At the far edge, a gray blot marked Terran space, featureless, without stations or relay buoys, like a shadow drawn onto the galaxy. Report, he rasped. Admiral, his sensor officer replied. No signals, no transmissions, no detectable structures. It is empty. Empty. Trixon spat the word as though it were poison. A void does not consume fleets. Something hides here, and we will rip it out. The crew roared their assent, though some did so half-heartedly. The stories of vanished ships weighed heavier than the Admiral's bravado admitted. The first 3 days passed uneventfully. Scouts darted ahead, reporting the same readings. No stations, no traffic, nothing at all. It was unsettling. The galaxy was noisy, frequencies cluttered with chatter, pulses, signals, beacons. Terran space was dead silent. On the 4th day, things began to change. Admiral, the communications officer croaked, we've picked up something. Trixon swiveled. A signal. The officer hesitated. Not exactly. It's music. The chamber hushed. Across the bridge, crew exchanged uneasy looks. A faint melody poured through the speakers, strings, percussion, voices rising together. Old Earth music, though the Kelvar had no name for it. To them, it was haunting, alien, deeply human. What frequency? Trixon barked. Wideband. It shifts constantly. We can't trace the source. It's as if it's everywhere at once. The Admiral's mandibles twitched. Jamming tactics. Psychological interference. Ignore it. But ignoring proved difficult. The music followed them, threading through every channel, rising louder when they tried to block it. Some swore they heard whispers in the harmonies, words in languages they didn't know but somehow understood. By the 6th day, one scout ship failed to return. No alarms. No distress calls. One moment, its icon pulsed on the tactical map. The next, it vanished. The crew whispered now, though never near the Admiral. They spoke of ghosts, of Terrans watching unseen. Trixon refused to flinch. Expand formation. Double sensor sweeps. If they think to play games, we will answer with fire. But the sensors showed nothing. No heat signatures. No warp trails. Only silence, broken by that endless music. Meanwhile, far from the fleet, in the council chambers, the disappearance had not gone unnoticed. They went silent 2 days ago, reported the speaker, his liquid form rippling. No transmissions since. A heavy silence settled. Many avoided glancing at the human representative. Ward, as always, sat calmly, hands folded, expression unreadable. At last, the Kroll envoy hissed. You knew this would happen. Ward's smile was polite, almost apologetic. I did say Terran space was best left blank. The Kelvar representative slammed his claws on the table. This is war, human. If your people have destroyed our fleet, you will answer for it. Ward raised a brow. Destroyed? That's a strong word. You're assuming you'll find wreckage. The Kelvar faltered, momentarily confused. Ward leaned back. But you won't. That's the unsettling part. Nothing to bury, nothing to measure. Just silence. Some things prefer not to leave behind evidence. The chamber bristled with outrage. Yet beneath it, a gnawing dread spread. The human was not boasting. He was explaining, with the calm certainty of a teacher reviewing a familiar lesson. Back in Terran space, the Kelvar fleet dwindled. On the 8th day, 5 more ships vanished. No explosions, no battles. They simply ceased existing on every screen. One moment, 31 ships roared in formation. The next, 25 remained, crews in panic, scanning wildly for threats that refused to appear. Morale shattered. Even Trixon's fury could not mend it. The communications officer finally broke. Admiral, permission to retreat. We cannot fight shadows. Trixon whirled, mandibles bared. Cowardice. We are Kelvar. We do not flee. Yet in his private thoughts, doubt wormed deep. He had fought 100 battles, but always against enemies who revealed themselves. This was different. This was hunting. And he began to suspect they were not the hunters. On the 9th day, the music changed. No longer background echoes, it became sharp, deliberate. The melody formed words. Turn back. The crew froze. The words weren't in Kelvar tongue, nor in any known language. Yet every being understood them instantly. Turn back. This is your only chance. The bridge fell silent, hearts pounding. Trixon growled, projection trickery. Empty threats. He clenched his claws, but his voice lacked conviction. Moments later, another ship vanished. Then another. The fleet was now 23. The Admiral gave the only order left. Reverse course. Maximum speed. But escape was a myth. The retreat lasted 3 days. One by one, the ships disappeared. No battles, no wreckage. Simply absence. By the time the border of Terran space loomed, only 2 ships remained, the Iron Fang and a crippled destroyer trailing behind. Trixon's eyes burned. "We'll make it. We'll warn the Council." The words died in his throat as the destroyer winked out. Only his flagship remained. And then, as though indulging him, the music fell silent. Sensors cleared. For the first time in 10 days, the void was empty. No threats, no tricks. Only the border. The Iron Fang limped across, battered crew daring to breathe relief. But the ship never arrived. The Council received no transmissions, no black box, not even a signal of distress. The fleet was gone. Commander Ward stood before the Council when the report was announced. He listened politely, expression unreadable, then spoke in the same calm tone as before. "Gentlemen, I believe your maps just gained another blank spot." He rose, straightened his uniform, and offered a faint smile that chilled the chamber. "Tell me again," he said softly, "why anyone insists on entering Terran space." The Council chamber had always been a theater of controlled chaos. Delegates argued, hissed, or hummed their way through disputes, but the rules of diplomacy kept the shouting civilized. That was before 2 Kelvar fleets had simply vanished. Now the chamber was louder than a Terran sports arena on championship night. Every species hurled accusations across the amphitheater. The Kelvar roared vengeance. The Celathai, long-necked scholars, begged restraint. The insectoid Threx clicked in agitation, demanding information. No one listened. At the center, Commander Ward sat in his chair as though he had wandered into a town hall back on Earth. A mug of coffee steamed beside him, its rich scent utterly alien among sterile recirculated air. He looked almost bored. The Kelvar delegate, General Vorsk, finally slammed his claws down. The noise cut through the din like a blade. "Twice." Vorsk snarled. "2 fleets gone. Not even debris left behind. This is annihilation, and the humans sit there smug, sipping their strange brew as though none of this matters." Ward calmly lifted his mug. "It's called coffee. You'd like it, once you stop shaking." The room froze. An insult cloaked in courtesy. Vorsk's mandibles rattled. "Do not mock me, Terran." "I wouldn't dream of it," Ward replied smoothly. "Though I admit, I do find it curious. Everyone seems shocked by this outcome, when I warned you plainly what happens in our space." The Celathai scholar uncoiled his long neck, voice measured. "Commander Ward, you speak as if you expected the Kelvar to vanish." Ward set down the mug, leaned forward, and met the alien's gaze. "Of course I expected it. The only surprise is how long it took them to disappear." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The Kroll envoy hissed from his shadowed alcove. "Are you admitting responsibility? Did humanity strike their fleets?" Ward tilted his head. "Responsibility? Not exactly. Let's call it inevitability." "Inevitability." "Step into the middle of an ocean storm," Ward said softly, "and then blame the storm when you drown. It doesn't matter whether the storm wanted you dead. The fact is, you shouldn't have been there." The words landed heavier than shouting ever could. Whispers broke out. Some species feared open war with humans. Others whispered about secret Terran weapons. None wanted to be the next fleet swallowed by silence. The Council speaker, voice trembling, tried to restore order. "Commander Ward, for clarity, is Terran space armed with devices beyond Council law?" Ward smiled faintly. "No." The relief was short-lived. He continued, "Devices can be destroyed. Weapons can be copied. What protects our space is older, simpler, and far less forgiving." Vorsk slammed the table. "Enough riddles." Ward's voice dropped to a near whisper, forcing the chamber to lean closer. "Predators don't explain the rules of the hunt. They simply hunt. That is the truth of Terran space." The Threx delegate, mandibles clacking nervously, spoke up. "You claim humans are predators. That is hardly unique. Many species evolved as such." Ward nodded politely. "True. But predators usually stop once they've eaten their fill. Humanity doesn't. That silenced even the Kelvar. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was broken by an unexpected sound. A laugh. Not loud, not cruel, but a low chuckle from Ward. "My apologies," he said, waving lightly. "I was reminded of something my grandfather used to say." The Celathai tilted his head. "And what is that?" Ward sipped his coffee, then answered, "When wolves learn to smile, it's already too late for the sheep." The chamber erupted again, but this time with fear behind the outrage. Some demanded immediate sanctions. Others argued humans must be expelled from the council. A few, terrified but pragmatic, whispered of negotiating permanent non-interference with Earth. Ward said nothing. He let them argue themselves into exhaustion, sipping his coffee as if the chaos was background music. Finally, the speaker restored enough order to continue. "Commander Ward, the council must know, what is the fate of those who enter your territory? If no wreckage exists, if no signals return, what becomes of them?" Ward's gaze drifted across the chamber. He seemed to weigh whether to answer honestly. Then he spoke, tone deceptively mild. "They are absorbed." Murmurs filled the chamber. "Absorbed." "Humanity is pragmatic," Ward explained. "Waste not, want not. A fleet that blunders into our territory becomes useful. The ships, the crews, their knowledge, it all finds a place." The Kelvar roared in outrage. "You enslave them." Ward shook his head. "Not enslave. Incorporate. Tools are sharpened, not enslaved. Assets are deployed, not enslaved. Consider it recycling." The polite phrasing made it worse. The Celathai scholar trembled as he asked, "And those who resist?" Ward's eyes hardened, the smile fading just enough to reveal steel beneath. "There's a reason no survivors return. Resistance is brief." The weight of his words crashed down like a storm. Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked ill. The Kroll hissed, voice shaking despite his effort to sound calm. "Then humanity admits it. Terran space is a trap." Ward finally leaned back, folded his hands, and answered plainly. "Not a trap," he said. "A boundary. Cross it, and you belong to us. Stay outside, and you'll never hear from us at all. The choice is simple." For the first time in living memory, the chamber had no rebuttal. Ward stood, gathered his papers, and prepared to leave. Before he stepped out, he paused at the threshold. His voice carried effortlessly across the hushed chamber. "Gentlemen, you call it vanishing. We call it recruitment. So I'll ask you once more, why would anyone keep sending patrols into Terran space, knowing what happens next?" He offered a final, polite smile. "Unless, of course, you've already decided you'd rather work for us." Then he walked out, leaving the chamber in a silence far louder than any battle. The council met in emergency session under an atmosphere thick enough to choke. Every seat was filled, every screen alive, every species represented. The Kelvar had demanded vengeance, the Celathai begged for sanity, and the Threks shrieked for isolation. No consensus formed, only panic disguised as debate. Then humanity forced the issue. It began with the stars themselves shifting. From the Council's orbital platform, delegates watched the galactic border flare with light. Not explosions, not cosmic phenomena, shapes. Hulls the size of mountains slipped into view, silent and steady. One ship. Then 5. Then 20. The void rippled like water, and more poured through. Ward stood at the center dais, calm as always, hands folded behind his back. His voice carried above the gasps and shouts. "You wondered what becomes of fleets that vanish into Terran space," he said softly. "Allow me to demonstrate." On the holomap above him, icons blinked into being. Hundreds of ships. Then thousands. Vessels from long-dead empires, lost patrols, forgotten armadas, all repainted, rebuilt, and now bearing Terran insignia. A Celathai scholar whispered, horrified, "Impossible. They should be wrecks. Ruins. Ward's eyes glinted. Nothing is wasted. Every ship that entered our borders has been integrated. Every crew, every technology, every tactic. We have been building a fleet for centuries while you looked the other way. The Kelvar delegate choked on rage. This is enslavement. Ward shook his head politely. This is survival. You call it theft. We call it inheritance. Outside, the display only grew worse. Entire constellations darkened as Terran stealth fleets disengaged their cloaks. Their silhouettes dwarfed anything the Council navies had ever fielded. The forgotten fleets hadn't vanished. They had been repurposed. The chamber broke into pandemonium. The Threx clattered their mandibles. You mean to wage war against us all? Ward didn't raise his voice, yet the calm tone cut sharper than any threat. War? No. Humanity doesn't start wars. We finish them. Always. A brave, or foolish, delegate tried for reason. If you wished peace, why build this armada? Why hide in shadows? Ward finally let the mask slip, if only for a heartbeat. The smile faded, leaving cold precision. Because peace is guaranteed only when no one dares break it. And tell me, he swept his gaze across the chamber, what stronger deterrent exists than the certainty of vanishing the moment you cross our line? The Kelvar general rose, trembling with fury. We will unite the Council fleets. We will burn Earth itself if we must. Ward studied him as though weighing a chess move already won. Then he leaned forward. You've already tried, he said softly. More than once. Your fleets rest under Terran command now. Shall I bring one into the chamber to refresh your memory? The general faltered. Ward continued, every patrol you send strengthens us. Every weapon you test against us becomes ours. You cannot outbuild what you supply. You cannot outlearn what we already know. Continue down this path, and you won't just vanish, you'll join the fleet. The threat was not shouted. It was delivered like weather. Inevitable, unquestionable. The Selethai scholar finally spoke, voice shaking. Then what do you want, Commander? What is humanity's demand? Ward smiled again, the polite curve returning, though now it felt like the smile of a predator indulging prey. Simple. Leave us alone. Draw your maps, trade your goods, squabble over your borders, but mark Terran space blank. No patrols. No spies. No curious expeditions. Do that, and we remain your quietest neighbor. And if we don't, whispered the Kroll envoy. Ward's gaze hardened. Then you'll discover how fast silence spreads. The chamber fell quiet. Even the Kelvar delegate, still trembling, said nothing more. Ward gathered his datapad, smoothed his uniform, and walked toward the exit. Before leaving, he paused at the threshold, as he always did. One last thing, he said without turning. You've spent centuries asking why Terran space devours fleets. Here's the truth you refuse to face. He glanced back, eyes gleaming. Humans don't guard the border. The border is human. You crossed into us. And we don't give things back. Outside the chamber windows, the Terran fleet drifted in silence. Hulls gleamed with markings from 100 species, all unified under Earth's banner. No wreckage. No memorials. Only ships that now belong to someone else. The delegates stared, each one realizing the same truth. No patrol would ever dare cross that border again. Not because they feared death, but because they feared assimilation. Ward sipped from a fresh mug of coffee as he boarded his shuttle. His parting words echoed through the chamber long after he left. Remember this, the galaxy is wide, but the map ends at Terran space. Step across, and you're not lost. You're ours. The doors sealed, and silence reclaimed the chamber.